We'll restart the
On my way, where I want to be. Got to stay out on the edge. Ronnie, there's an effing Viking in here.
What is that?
That's what he says in the subway.
Open the door! The fucking Viking in here!
The whole subway thing, there were people from the 1800s.
Civil War.
Look, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, one of the notes I had was they used this song too much. It should have been one time at the very end.
No. My way.
Where I want to be. Got to stay. Out on the edge. Blake, this is one of the greatest songs in the history of music and the history of movies, I guess is what I really should have said.
True.
Hello, everybody. He's Blake. I'm Ronnie. All the good names are taken podcast. And today we're talking 1985's classic billion-dollar box office movie, The Heavenly Kid. I love it. There's not enough positive things I can say about this movie. Hit us in the comments if you have extra positive things that we leave out. But Blake, this movie's great. I remember when you got introduced to this movie on the audio podcast and you thought it was great immediately. I grew up on this movie. This movie's amazing. I love everything about it. I love the main guy. I don't know how he didn't turn into Tom Hanks. I don't know how Iron Eagle didn't become the second biggest star behind this Lewis Smith guy. Rafferty, what's his real name? Richard Mulligan is great in this movie, and he's only in the movie for like 4 total minutes. But Rafferty's great. Everything about this movie's great. How you doing, by the way?
I'm doing really well. This movie is a lot of fun, and I'm like you. Why did I not hear about this until a couple of years ago? I should have grew up on this movie. I'm sad that I didn't. I think it's got a great message. I think the comedy in it is perfect. I think that I think everyone is cast perfectly in this movie, and it's a lot of unknowns too, or it is for me anyway. Like I don't know who the main kid is.
It's the guy from Iron Eagle.
Right, I never seen it though. I just know Chappie or something like that.
You never seen Iron Eagle?
Never seen Iron Eagle.
We gotta do Iron Eagle.
You want to do it? You want to do Iron Eagle tomorrow?
Let's do Iron Eagle tomorrow.
Let's do it. I know the mom is in Malcolm in the Middle and a bunch of other.
Married to Eric from Billy Madison.
Billy Madison. Is she really married to him?
Eric. Yeah, she's
awesome.
married.
I love it when two of my favorites get together, like Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
Yes. Blake, this movie has a very simple plot to it. Back in the 50s or 60s, these greasers, they're racing cars to prove who's bigger. Mark Metcalf argued or hit on Bobby's girl. So they're going to race these cars to the edge, and it's pretty much playing chicken. And whoever jumps out first loses. And the other one, I don't understand why these cars, do they cut the brakes on them? Why don't they just hit the brakes? And you know how much of an impact and injury you'd have from jumping out of that car like that? That's one thing. But the movie starts off with Bobby, who is like the Fonzie. And you got Mark Metcalf, he's like, come on, Bobby. Yeah, I hit on your girl, but I'm sorry. We don't have to do this.
You ready, Joe?
You don't have to do this, Fontaine. I mean,
Bobby's like, no, we're going to do this. And he goes, you think you're so tough, don't you? So he didn't want to do it. And Joe, at the very beginning of the movie, is trying to talk Bobby out of doing this ridiculous stuff. And then he hits his girlfriend with, I got it covered. Joe jumps out of the car. Bobby goes to jump out of the car, and his bracelet is caught on the gear shift. And he goes over, and you get to hear him scream, oh, shit, as he goes down there, and the car explodes. He's dead. Joe hugs Emily, and then we go to the future, however many years. But it like I said, it's a simple premise. Bobby's trying to get into heaven because he didn't have the best life. And he's stuck in, what's the place between?
Purgatory?
Yeah, he's stuck in purgatory. And this movie is so 80s because they give you uptown, midtown, downtown. And anybody, you don't have to be religious to understand which is which. He's riding in purgatory in midtown on a subway for God knows how long, because all they say is
17 years.
And also, it's really weird about when did the beginning of it take place? I mean, if the movie's set in the present, 1985, then I guess that movie would be set in 1968 because, like you said, it's 17 years. And when he finally gets off the train, he tries to go up the escalators to go to Uptown, and they stop him. And then Rafferty explains to him, "You can't get into Uptown right now. I'll let you know when your project comes due." And he has to get back on the subway. Then we get the whole present day. So he's been on the subway. He's been in purgatory for 17 years, awaiting his assignment.
And that whole system is fun to think about. Like,
Yes.
he wasn't the best person, so he's got to sit there on that subway for 15 years before they figure out either a way to get him into heaven or, hey, man, sorry, you're going to hell. But it gets me thinking about these other guys that are on the subway, like the effing Viking that he points out to Rafferty. What's the Viking doing in Midtown? Like, are you telling me there's a chance he gets into heaven? Or like those Civil War guys, or the old lady smoker? I mean, the old lady smoker, I guess she could have just got there at the same time.
No, they let her up. They let her up the escalator because they say you don't have to worry about that smoke, that cough ever again. And she's like, "Oh, okay, thank you."
My point is those other two have been on that subway for hundreds of years.
Yes, they're not getting off. I mean, they haven't come up with an assignment. Look, Midtown might be the place to be. You got the Midtown bar where those guys are all drinking and partying and eating. That might be the best place to spend purgatory.
I mean, you get to know everybody. You're hanging out.
You're hanging out. You got friends. You're getting drunk. Bobby's job, Rafferty tells him, is to go back and you've got to make this kid cool. Well, he assumes he's got to make the kid cool and because he says he's a geek. And the whole movie is Lewis Smith, Bobby, trying to make the guy from Iron Eagle, Jason, whatever his name, Gergwick, into a cool kid. Like you said, there's some serious, like, emotional moments in this movie because it's his son. And you get to find out. You think the gimmick is going to be that he's sent back to help the son of his high school sweetheart and the guy that he was racing when he got killed. But you later find out when he reveals himself to Emily that she tells him, "All right, it's a really good movie and it's cheesy at times, but it's good cheese."
But that reveal also lets you know how good of a guy Joe really was too.
And that's one of the things he said.
Big reveal. Yeah, it's a big reveal. But let's don't skip over the fact that Lenny doesn't realize he's dead. Like Rafferty having to explain to him that.
Oh, you're talking about Bobby. Bobby doesn't realize he's dead. Yeah.
Bobby doesn't realize he's dead. You know, he remembers the race. He doesn't exactly remember what happened though. He says it's blurry, and then it kind of hits him, and the panic sets in. Man, I was just a kid. I was just getting started, and the realization sets in, and then he's got to sit on that subway for 15 years or 17 years, whatever, however old the kid is, That's all I got. I'm done.
All right, let's get into the good, Blake. What's your first good?
My first good is Bobby trying to prove he's an angel.
It's mine. My first bullet point, Bobby trying to prove to Lenny that he is not of this earth.
Yeah, so he throws his jacket off a cliff and says, "Watch this, kid." He throws his leather jacket off a cliff and it just goes straight down. And the kid's like, "It's a great trick." He rips up the kid's term paper, and I guess he's going to magically put it back together.
He puts it back in the folder, and he does this right here.
In the folder, and it's still in pieces.
Got any tape?
You got any tape?
And then he attempts to get hit by an 18-wheeler. He said, if I know what I'm doing, this 18-wheeler is going to go right through me. And then at the last second, he jumps out of the way. So there's no reason this kid should believe him at all. So I thought that was well-timed comedy. I love it.
Well, the kid is sitting there like a reading poetry on the edge of a cliff, and he falls off, and Bobby catches him at the bottom of the ridge. He should have died right there.
And Bobby's like, "All right, I'm going to see Rafferty because I'm done. My job was to save your life, obviously, because if I wasn't here, your story ended right then."
Yeah.
And like they never really talk about that, like changing someone's fate, I guess.
Yeah, later in the movie, he's supposed to die in the car wreck, and Rafferty's like, "You can't do that. It's been written." But you're absolutely right. I never thought of that. He should have died right there without a guardian angel.
He should have been dead unless he landed on his feet.
Could have. Hit and roll is what the old timers say.
Yeah, that's what they used to say. but that's never really addressed, but it's also not a big deal. But yeah, Bobby thinks he's done. He's like, I saved the kid's life. What else you want me to do? He's like, that's not your project or whatever. Assignment. Yeah.
And when you look at it, and I know people are going to say that we're making way too much of it. When you look at how this movie is layered, they sent him, he had to wait 17 years so he could see that he had a son, and his heart, like the Grinch, I guess, could actually grow, and he would not be a selfish person anymore because there's somebody there, and he actually gets to make friends with his son before he knows it's his son. This movie's got a lot of heart. Is that little Rafferty?
This is Rafferty, Ronnie. You know what your assignment is? Kisses. Butterfly kisses is your assignment. Ooh. You go sit in that sandbox.
That was my first good too, so I'm gonna skip to the next one. They have a scene where he's trying to, like any other 80s movie, it's like a montage. He's trying to make Lenny cool. And they do the whole Pretty Woman thing where he's like trying to pick out outfits and things like that. And he ends up with like this. I mean, I thought they would go like the full greaser route like Bobby, but they did like an 80s modern greaser with the leather jacket that's modern and cool. But that's not one of my goods, even though it's a great scene. It's the going to get the car. Him and his son building, like that's a father-son thing back in the 80s, was to build a car together, work on cars together. He makes him a car out in the junkyard, and you get to see him putting the engine in and magically beautiful convertible. I'm sure you know what the car is, Blake, and you'll tell me.
It's a Ford.
Yeah, there you go. I just thought that scene was so freaking good. I loved it. And then later on, when you find it, it's just a scene between two guys until later on in the movie when you find out, hey, this is my son. So
and it makes it that much better when you look back at it. Ronnie, my next good is all the music montages.
Yes.
Fixing the car up, Pretty Woman clothes montage, picking up women montage is great. Doing the cigarettes and setting everything on fire. And then the cruising montage. They're just cruising around with girls in the car.
Bobby staring at
lots of really good music in this. We played it at the top. And I get it. Like, most of it's probably filler, but well-timed montages in this movie.
Good filler. There's a such thing as good filler. And this is amazing filler that adds to the plot of the movie, where Lenny is actually a closeted introvert bookworm, and he's, becoming an extrovert.
Branching out. We're earning trust between both. And we're getting to know each other. We're starting to like each other and starting to learn from each other. So really good montages.
My next good and my last good is the gay bar scene. So he tells him, he goes, look, you're going to go through this all wrong. And we go, like Blake just said, he goes through a montage trying to pick up girls. And he shows him the move of the cigarette. And the cigarette lands in a guy's pizza. And one time he set something on fire and he gets water dashed in his face. And Bobby's like, look, we're going this about the wrong way. We're just going to go to one of the bars I used to hang out. And Lenny goes, I'm just going to stay in the car. And he goes, you sure? And he goes, yeah, I'm going to stay out here. I'll come in a minute. He goes, okay, I'll be in there waiting on you. And Bobby walks into the bar.
A lot of changes.
And there's a scene, and these guys are getting it on the dance floor. And just the best comedy is Bobby goes, ooh, a lot of changes. And he turns, he walks out, and he goes, sits in the car. And Lenny's just looking at him, smiling, because you find out that's why Lenny wasn't going in, because it's a well-known gay bar in the town. This dude's trying to take him in there to pick up a girl. It's just fantastic. It's fantastic, Blake. What do you got for the bad?
I only have one bad in this whole movie. And that's at the very end, the flying motorcycle going into the sky.
Oh, man, I love that. It's cheesy to look at, I know, but I love it. God, I love it. I love it so much.
We arrive by lightning or something like that. I think Rafferty does at one point. And then we just have this weird riding off into the sky, thumbs up. I just thought we could have had something a little more meaningful between father and son than what we got.
I'm going to combine some of these bad since you only had one. The car still being at the bottom of the ridge, the burn up cars that he died in. They would have cleaned those cars up. Are we supposed to believe Bobby's bones and ashes are still in that car? I mean, I don't get it because it looks like they hadn't been moved at all. So how would they have got him out of there? Also, even though I just said it was it's a scene where Bobby gets to go back to where his final moments of being alive happened, and he gets to think about all the mistakes that he made. And this movie is him realizing how he wasted his life, pretty much being a braggart and just his ego getting the best of him. He could have took Joe's apology, and they could have went on and partied all night long, but he didn't, and he wasted, what would have been a great life. You got to figure if he would have stayed with Emily. I mean, she's got a great life with Joe. The next one is "I got it covered" is said way too many times. That's Bobby's line, and Lenny starts to say it too, and that's when his mom first gets the weird look on her face, what's going on here? But then he says it like a couple more times, and he says it to chick that is supposed to be the nerd that later becomes the nurse in Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, they do the gimmick. Wow, good pull. They do the gimmick in this one. I think we saw it maybe in Teen Wolf 2 and Teen Wolf 1, where, hey, there's a girl that's interested in me, but I'm not interested in her. We're just friends. I'm after this really slutty main chick.
Who's ugly. Come on, Joe, have a heart. The kid just got laid. The scene where he's not supposed to reveal himself to anybody, and he reveals himself to Emily, and they go to all the places they hung out as a kid, and he finally gets to tell her he loves her because he never got to tell her when they were alive. And she's like, "Lenny's your son." Joe knows, and he didn't care. And earlier in the movie, he was just looking at Joe watching TV, burping and farting. And he's like, "Joe, what is it about you? Is it your charm, your looks, your hot body? What does she love about you?" Then he goes down while Joe's asleep, and he thanks Joe for taking care of his son when he didn't have to. And he goes, "I guess Joe's a pretty good guy after all." And that's a scene that I don't think gets enough attention from the 10 people that have seen this movie. But my last bad, Blake, is him just being a jerk to his mother and his friend. I think her name's Sally. I could be wrong. But the friend who is obviously in love with him, and he's just being this like a jerk to her. And you get to see the scene where she's like just crying. And I think that's the scene that just sort of wakes him up to everything. And not to mention the two bad guys in this movie that are great value bad guys, great value 80s bad guys that, challenge him to a race like Bobby and Joe were in at the very beginning of it, and he accepts it. Just the transformation of him being a good kid to getting a little popularity and treating people like I really didn't like that. I
do have one more bad, and it's a little nitpicky, but I love the scenes where Bobby's a ghost, Lenny's the only person that can see him, or Marty, whatever the hell his name is.
Lenny.
There's a scene where Bobby's driving the car, Lenny's in the front seat, and they pull up next to somebody, and they look, and there's nobody driving. Lenny just must be Japanese, is their ongoing joke, Same thing with like riding a bicycle. He's jogging next to a bicycle. Bobby's on the bicycle, but of course, everybody else's point of view, nobody's on it. I loved all those scenes except for the one at the very end where he survives the race. Bobby somehow saves him on that cliff. He hops up. There's a crowd of people there. I mean, a ton of people there.
Yes.
He hugs his mom. He hugs Joe. And then, he hugs Melissa. And then, right in front of everybody, he turns around and starts talking to Bobby. And then, nobody is batting an eye. It's like we forgot, hey, that's a ghost. They should be asking questions. Melissa does say at the end when he's waving to the sky like the alligator in Happy Gilmore, he's like, "What are you looking at, Bob? Terry?" And he's like,
"Terry,
nobody."
Talking about Bobby finds out that his assignment is the son of his former high school sweetheart, and he tells Rafferty, "Get me another assignment. I don't want this." And then he changes his mind. Then he reveals himself to Emily, and he tells Rafferty, "It's okay if I got to stay in purgatory the rest of my life. It's okay if you send me to downtown. I've got a son. I got to tell my sweetheart I love you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. It was worth it." And then Rafferty gets up.
Like, "You bastard, you did it."
Rafferty gets up and goes to the bar to order something. And Rafferty's had this book with him the whole time, and he leaves the book open. And Bobby sees the book and sees that Lenny is on the incoming list of dead people for the next day. And he tells Rafferty, he goes, "You got to send me back. This is my fault. He would never be in this racing situation if it wasn't for me. Send me back, Rafferty. Do whatever you got to do. Tell them they can have my soul if I can just go back and save my son." And then, like you said, they're racing. Lenny's jacket is caught on the stick shift, just like Bobby's was. And he goes over, and right before he goes over, like Bobby appears in the car. "Hey, kid, you didn't think I let you down, did you?" And they both hit the oh shit as they go over the thing, and you think he's dead, but Bobby helps him up the side of the cliff. And like you said, which you were wrong on one thing, he doesn't talk to Bobby in front of all those people. He talks to his mom, he talks to Joe, and tells them all the crazy shit's over with. He promises. And then they cut to him at the bottom of the ridge, and he's talking to Bobby. And then that's when the girlfriend walks up, and he goes, "I want you to meet her." And he goes, "Maybe some other time, kid." And he lets him know. He goes, "Even though I'm not going to be here, I'm always going to be with you." And another thing that is not talked about enough this movie is Lenny hits him with, "You can't leave. You're my best friend." And that's like, as a father, he's got to put together a car with him. He's got to teach him how to talk to girls, teach him about fashion, teach him about being a man. And at the end of it, he gets to hear his son tell him that, "Hey, you're my best friend." And then he hops on the back of the motorcycle for one of your bads, which is the
riding to the moon. I think it's the fact that he's riding on the back of Rafferty's bike is just, whatever. But he never tells him he's his dad, does he?
No, he never does, because if he does,
I think that's such a good move on this
because
movie.
Joe's got to be the dad.
Yeah.
Joe's got to be the dad. He can't tell that. And I think that's also shows the evolution of Bobby from being selfish to not being selfish, because the old Bobby would have told in a heartbeat, "Hey, you're my son, not Joe's." But
10 out of 10.
Yeah, this is a 10 out of 10. This is 80s greatness. Go watch it. Like I said earlier, don't know why this Lewis Smith guy didn't become a star. I think he's in the miniseries Civil War. When I looked it up 100 years ago on the audio podcast. Blake, who's the ugliest person in this movie?
Ooh. I don't even think I wrote down an ugly, Ronnie. You go first.
Okay, well, when he's learning how to be cool and do the Bobby move with the cigarettes, he packs the cigarettes and they fly out of the pack, and the cigarette lands into a piece of pizza in front of a guy who's eating pizza by himself at the pizza place. The guy, depending, it's 85, so the guy could have been 18 or 48. I don't know, but he has got to be the ugliest person in this movie.
I'm going to go with the smoking lady that's in Midtown.
The old lady.
The old lady, yeah. She's ugly as shit, man. Maybe heaven will fix her.
There you go. She'll be gorgeous when she gets into heaven. Hit us in the comments, guys. Have you ever seen The Heavenly Kid? You can find it on YouTube, Blake?
I don't know if it's on YouTube, but it's on one of those streaming apps. It popped up right away. I was able to watch it.
I think if you got YouTube Premium, it's a free movie on YouTube, and I think it's a free movie on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure. It's in the comments. What's your good, bad, and ugly on The Heavenly Kid? If you haven't seen Heavenly Kid, go out of your way to check it out, guys.
He's Ronnie. I'm Blake. I got to
see ya.
Out on the edge.